Welcome to CMO Dialogues hosted by Anika Sharma, the podcast where marketing leaders explore the intersection of creativity, strategy, and technology. From AI to data-driven storytelling, CMO Dialogues explores how C-suite leaders are reshaping customer engagement and driving growth. Bold insights, real stories, the future of marketing straight from the mavericks.
So, hi Ajit, thank you so much, first and foremost, for being here. I'm really excited that you're one of our first, people that we are actually talking to, our first guest that we are talking to for the CMO podcast. I'm going to introduce myself, and Ajit, I'm going to try and introduce you, but I'm sure I'll fall short. So my name is Anika. I'm the host and of the CMO Dialogues podcast. I also head marketing services for CMOs and CMO tech at LTI Mindtree. This is our initiative to have a larger dialogue with the business and the marketing side of the house. So it's a brand new initiative, and we hope that we can take these collective learnings and not just share it with our guests, but also start a conversation around this. Ajit, you obviously are, at Lenovo for the last almost 20 years. I was stalking you on LinkedIn. I've had the opportunity to see you present on stage. You've been a big proponent of, direct to consumer and just e-commerce in general. I believe you almost set that up for Lenovo Americas. But please do add to anything that I may have missed.
No, look, first of all, thank you for inviting me. I know the topic today is AI and potentially marketing and other things that are peripheral to AI conversation. So I appreciate it. I would start by saying that I am not an expert in AI. There are many, many other people within Lenovo who are probably much well versed in the technical knowledge of AI and how we are leveraging that across all of our products and all of the things that we do. But what I will probably focus mostly on is a operator's point of view on the challenges that we have in terms of how we think about AI and how to drive that conversation. So a lot of that conversation is really about how we are thinking about AI from a practitioner's standpoint.
Before that, actually, Ajit, can you give us a viewpoint into just your journey, even at Lenovo? Because I think you've had front row seats at seeing this brand go from being, the underdog to being, one that, other competitors are taking very seriously now. And I think there might be some insights across your journey. Perhaps that might be a good place to start.
Well, I mean, like you said, I mean, this is my 20th year at Lenovo, and I was recruited to actually build a consumer brand online. So when we started in 2006, we did not really have an e-commerce presence. We worked with IBM through the transition of their PC business. And so I started actually setting up the platform and building the D2C business at Lenovo. And today, obviously, that business is in the billions of dollars, both across B2B, B2C, and consumer. And I expanded the business into 36 countries around the world. So it is a pretty significant business. And I think one that, if you kind of think about the future, is something that is going to be bigger and better in the future, just like every other e-commerce business that you've seen. Look, I mean, Lenovo has been very successful, and I'm very happy that I've been part of that journey. Partly because I think we have been very grounded in our approach to market, our approach to kind of thinking about technology and really focusing on the customer. So I could not be happy and proud that we have kind of shed that underdog moniker of 20 years. And now we are talked about in some of the top names when it comes to a technology provider. So I'm very happy with that.
When you talk about e-commerce, obviously Lenovo has a gamut of products, right? So was there like a phase? Did it just start with laptops and computers? Did it move into something else? What's the gamut of offerings that we're talking about when it comes to direct to consumer with reference to e-commerce?
Yeah, so when we started, it was actually business laptops, believe it or not, because that was the only thing that was available as part of the IBM acquisition. Our China business, which combined with the IBM PC business, was that $13 billion entity. But most of the products that were consumer facing were actually in China. So it took us a while to actually get those products ready for the global markets integrate that into our go-to-market. So we started with laptops and desktops and kind of the traditional technology products that people use. But then we have made steady acquisitions, several, but two notable ones that actually are, I think, worth talking about. The first one was we acquired the IBM PC business, IBM server business, 10 years ago or so, maybe a little bit more. But that server business was critical for us to kind of change into a one-stop fits all sort of solution provider journey, which I think is kind of where Dell has been, or Cisco and some others have been. And I think it was important for us to kind of round out that portfolio. We also made an acquisition from Google of the Motorola brand. So when you see Motorola phones, I mean, that, most people maybe don't know, but we actually own Motorola as a brand. So that has been a good journey. I mean, it's been a very, very successful acquisition for us. And now we are seeing some significant growth in the smartphones business. So we sell the gamut of technology solutions, I mean, and products. I mean, from anything from peripherals, PCs, storage, servers, high-end compute, and then phones. So all of them. And then now, obviously, our big push is into services. And the AI, when you talk about AI, I mean, that's a big area where there is a significant opportunity for us to help put together all of our technology, but then power it through AI that allows people to get a disproportionate advantage in the kinds of things that they're trying to do.
I love the fact that you use the word power and that disproportionate advantage, and I do want to come back to that. But before that, it seems like Lenovo's journey into direct-to-consumer when it came to e-commerce started with business. Am I right? So it was business first and then consumer.
Right.
Now, if there's one, there were a lot of lessons, I believe, especially for tech and for, how to market to consumers during COVID. And I think one of the things that everybody tried to do, because everybody was sitting on their laptops at home, and therefore, if they were anything like me, we were shopping to make up for the boredom of sitting at home. And so a lot of companies pivoted to direct to consumer and then realized either very quickly or very slowly that it's a very different ballgame than going, B2B to C or, B2B. And so as you have actually, seen that transition, right, from the acquisition to first talking about business laptops and then pivoting to direct to consumer, what was that learning shift like? And, was it a big learning curve for someone like Lenovo who was used to talking to businesses rather than direct to consumers?
Well, actually, when I started 20 years ago, I was doing direct to consumer, even on the SMB B2B, solutions. So what I meant was everything that we did was a direct to consumer, and consumer is a broad term. In this particular case, we were not talking about onesie, twosie consumers, but mostly small businesses.
Small businesses, yeah.
And enterprise class customers. So both different solutions, but all built on a digital platform.
Right. How has this business changed for you during and after COVID?
So COVID was an accelerator. I mean, our business has actually, the business that I've been driving the last 20 years has been fairly robust in terms of growth. We have not had very many years where we have not grown. So it's a factor of things, right? One is people are moving naturally. As literacy goes up, as internet penetration goes up, I think people are moving online. So that shift is happening. It's not forced. It's just the nature of how the generations are evolving. And then as the digital generation, Gen X and Gen Millennials and others have come along, I mean, they're more used to and more comfortable with technology, with phones and being able to, do stuff digitally. So it has been a very natural transition. But I think COVID was a big accelerator, like you mentioned. People are not able to go out. There were restrictions. There were lots of challenges for people to kind of get to things that they wanted. So I think what it did was actually just speed up the process of people accepting online as a viable way to purchase things. Happened with food, happened with all of the service industries, and obviously, the story of the circular economy, all the things that are associated with it. It's just a question of people just being comfortable. Now, the big shift really is that people who have traditionally been in the channel or been in other areas where they have prided in directly dealing with the consumer, hands-on through phones and others, they've had to make some adjustments to think about omnichannel, think about how to kind of bring along their customers or their offerings from a digital standpoint. So that's a big shift. And I think big companies, that's what's happening, is omnichannel is becoming more important. And we are no different. So we are thinking about omnichannel in terms of saying, hey, if this platform works for hundreds of millions of customers, how do we make sure that it's extensible to other areas of the business, including our partners and others? Because look, at the end of the day, the innovation that we drive in terms of D2C, there are many things that happen in that space that's difficult for partners to go build because of investments, because of the nature of what we do. So some of the IP and some of the work that we do centrally benefits others. And it's cost prohibitive potentially for small players and others to kind of go invest in the same things. So it allows for us to extend those investments to other people so that we can bring everybody along with us.
Now, from just as somebody who has seen Lenovo from the outside, I'm just absolutely in awe of how quickly the organization moves. You normally think that a large organization will be slower, but it looks like Lenovo at the speed of, at the speed of innovation that Lenovo has had, at the speed at which how quickly it has gathered market share, in companies that it has, in the countries that it has entered net new, right? And not been an incumbent in that market. I'm also amazed at how quickly you were able to offer different kinds of products. I think one of the things I was mentioning was, I bought my daughter a laptop, which was a gaming laptop. I remember your yoga books, right? Which were just like people were looking at it and saying, is this a tablet? Before they knew what a tablet was, it was in such cool colors. And I don't know why you called it the yoga book, but I remember if I was to, take a guess, it was because it was so flexible and it almost looked like it could do all those asanas itself. It could be my, partner on the yoga mat. But just, you made tech look cool long before I think people realized that tech could look cool. So is agility something that has always been part of the Lenovo DNA? Is that something that the company had to learn? I mean, any insights on that?
No, I think it comes down to two or three things. I think number one, I think culture. Culturally, I think we are a very entrepreneurial company. We nurture entrepreneurship at every level. Executives all the way through everybody, every level of the organization. We want people to believe that they are part owners of the company. So that culturally has always been the mindset of our CEO from day one. And that has carried through. So people kind of work and they think about it, but they think about this as something that, is their business. And so they invest and they make decisions for their business. So that's one. Second one is I think we hire good people. I think we have very talented people around the world. We take a lot of pain to identify the right people with the right mindset that kind of fit into our profile of people that we want. And then the last one really is we are a extremely disciplined and data-driven organization. We make decisions based on P&Ls. We make decisions based on data, and maybe sometimes to a fault. But the reality is that we make decisions that are very prudent. We take calculated risks, but we're very clear on which markets to enter, what is the priority, how do we want to approach it, how do we manage online, offline, how do we manage our partner ecosystem. I think we are fairly thoughtful about how we do these things. And if anything, I think it's probably slowed down a little bit because now we are a much bigger company. But still, I think that I've worked in many companies and I've had the honor of speaking to many others. We definitely have that edge in terms of being fast, in terms of being able to make decisions that are faster, because I think we are less bureaucratic, less hierarchical than traditional companies.
Even the acquisition of Motorola, which I remember, by the way, almost 30 years back in India, it was one of my coolest phones. I remember the Razor, it almost reminded me of the yoga book now, right? It was just amazing like that a phone could do that because its competition was the Nokia, which was almost like a brick, And so you had this big phone and then you had this really cool phone that you could almost feel like it wasn't in your hand. And so just when the competition in handheld devices has gone up, you did the acquisition of Motorola, and how has that worked out? I mean, any insights you could shed on that, and why did Lenovo go down that path?
Well, I mean, look, phone is a very important piece in the puzzle. Lots of people don't maybe necessarily understand, but I'm sure it's intuitive to many others that the phone is a crucial device that connects you to your compute. I mean, as an example, 80% of searches first happen on a phone for anything. So if you're an e-commerce person, you cannot ignore the fact that 80% of customers are looking at your website through a phone, and your ability to make an impression or your ability to actually influence them about the brand, about what we have, all those things become very important, right? So phone in some ways is a strategic element in terms of how people think about compute. So I am not 100% sure about what was driving that thinking at the CEO level, but my sense is that I think we recognized early on that smartphones are critical. You also learn so much from people using the phone and the instrumentation data and all that stuff, because it gives you a window into how other people are using. And phones now, compared to even 10 years ago, are far more powerful than even the laptops then. So it's not that far-fetched to think about an ecosystem that gives you insights, or you have phones as a critical element of that technology purchase that customers have. I mean, phone is a technology device. I mean, it is a very, very powerful device that people have. And in many parts of the world, people don't have laptops. So phones become the affordable
first
way
window.
for and be connected to the world. So in many ways, as a global company that operates in 165 countries and has all these things, we operate in so many countries where maybe even direct to consumer is still not a thing. But the phone becomes very crucial from that standpoint.
So it was a very strategic, acquisition, and obviously it also helps you harness more of the consumer journey, right? So between
It
the
does.
laptops, yeah. So
It
in
does.
that sense, yeah.
Plus our distribution channels, we already had a pretty extensive and well invested ecosystem from a distribution standpoint. So for us, phones become a natural extension. Our ability to actually distribute phones becomes a strategic advantage as well.
Right. So now I do know that Lenovo does a lot of services in-house. Am I right? When it comes to tech services, right? One of the things that we have seen in companies that have actually done very well, especially from an agility perspective, from answering to changing market needs perspective, is this balance of the core and the more, right? So what are the services that you can keep in-house? And then what are the services that you actually have your service providers build for you or do for you, so that there's a combination of the two. You don't have to hire everybody. You don't have to build GCCs in various countries, and you also realize that is not your core business, right? So what is Lenovo's thinking around as technology continues to morph at a speed, I believe, which is much higher than it was even a decade ago? How does Lenovo continue? What is its philosophy around speed, agility, while keeping some of the services in-house? What is that balance that Lenovo has been able to find?
Just like every other big company, we have a mix of options. One advantage of being a company that has got deep roots in China is the ability for us to get tech talent, especially
Correct.
at scale. And so, we have a significant investment in the tech talent area in China. Obviously, 10, 15, 20 years ago, cost was really in our favor. Costs have escalated over the years, but still having access to a talent pool of engineers is always a good thing. Plus, Lenovo's brand in China is so strong that we are able to attract talent. The people who want to come, they want to work at Lenovo. So that was a huge advantage at that point. But now we have people now in India, as an example, where we have a development center and we have got people there, because we also understand that India is a young country. There's lots of talent there and lots of smart talent that gets us ready for things like AI and other things. So I think our backbone really is to have in-house development resources that can actually build the kinds of things that we want. But again, we partner with all of the above, including Mindtree and others, on various things, depending on what type of skill sets we lack. Not everything we have in-house, especially as you're kind of working through it. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was big data as an example. We didn't have the kind of talent. So at some point, we had to bring in people who could advise us, tell us how to do things correctly, bring use cases, bring other experiences. And then, we learn, we kind of build those capabilities in. It's I think, like every other big company, our philosophy is very simple. We want to use in-house talent at scale where we have an advantage. And then where there are new things and innovations that are coming that we don't have expertise in, those we try to figure out who are the best partners and players that we can partner with. So it's just a evolution of new technologies coming in.
Yeah.
How do we kind of think about it? Which of those we want to insource? Which of those we want to keep outsourced? So it's I think it's a very natural progression for us.
So you sit at in Lenovo, does e-commerce fall under IT or does it fall under business or marketing?
Sales.
Oh, sales. Okay.
Yeah.
So you have the distinct advantage of looking at tech working, right, towards actual numbers, right? And the business side, ensuring that they're the eyes and the ears of the customer, right? So this is almost like the where the rubber hits the road, right? So, in that sense, I think which this conversation and this initiative is all about, right? That intersection of the CTO, CIO, CMO to make sure that at the end of the day, they have to answer to consumers like me or my kids who, at the end of the day want tech to work for them, right? As an enabler. Where are you seeing organizations go? And it doesn't just have to be Lenovo, because you've been a speaker at so many events and in so many countries. What is that perfect mix of, where does the CMO end and the CIO starts, especially with data, or the CTO starts with, really big initiatives when it comes to tech? And really, who owns that? Who owns that budget, right? Because especially when it comes to AI, which touches everything, or data, which touches everything, they're almost like threads that touch, I think, multiple parts of the organization. So what are some of the insights that you have around organizations that are getting it right, organizations that perhaps can learn from, companies like Lenovo? Any insights that you can give around this?
Yeah, I mean, every company is different in their philosophy as to how they think about this. A minute ago, I mentioned that we are a very P&L driven company. So every business unit actually has their own P&Ls and they run the business end to end, including a CIO, CTO, CMO. So I think you have this advantage of thinking about, let's take the example of e-commerce. I mean, I run that business end to end. I have a CMO, I have a technology person, I have a IT person. They are all focused on the core business. So when we are talking about execution end to end, I tell people all the time, when you're confused, just think about the customer. The confusion just goes away because you think about needs of what you're trying to actually achieve. Forget about your titles and what you're trying to do. Think about the customer and what the needs are, and you start thinking about what is the priority to go solve problems. So, from an e-commerce standpoint, I mean, the problems have been varied over the last several years, but
Correct.
The focus always has been how do we make sure that the customer evolution is being serviced correctly. Customers are evolving every single day. They're getting more sophisticated based on innovation that happens around them. From an e-commerce standpoint, as an example, 25 years ago, maybe people didn't know about Amazon, but Amazon made e-commerce ubiquitous, right? You buy a book, you buy your toilet paper, you buy everything from Amazon.
Anything, yeah.
So they know what the experience is, what the expectation is. So they're setting the tone as an example to
Correct.
say, this is what I expect. I pick up the phone, I'm able to order something, it shows up in my house the same
Overnight,
day, second day, third day, whatever, right? So now that is the standard, and that's what customers expect. So for us as a company, if you're doing D2C for a brand like Lenovo, as an example, I have to really worry about what Amazon is doing for their customers because that's the expectation.
And that's your competition, right? It's not just so much, a regular.
It's not so much a competition. I think it's just a question of what is the customer expectation. If the customer is buying online from us, they're going to compare naturally to their experience on Amazon. And if that experience is dramatically different or not good, then I think people are going to feel let down, or their feeling is that, hey, you're a big technology company, but then when it comes to actually doing this, you're not meeting what others are doing in the space. So we have to be very, very careful to make sure that we are benchmarking against players who are actually pushing the envelope when it comes to innovation and technology and user experience. So that's what we do. We try to really benchmark against players who are doing well, whether that's a last mile logistics, whether that's call center management, whether that is how you manage your marketing. All of those things, you learn from the best in terms of saying, what is the customer expectation? Millennials want to be treated different. Gen Zs have different preferences. Small and medium business have different requirements. Our ability to actually understand what the customer really needs and being able to go solve that problem, I think is paramount. I mean, that is the most important thing. So a lot of the investments, a lot of the way we think about the business, the conversation between CIO, CTO, CMO, it's all focused on serving the customer. And that's ultimately the prize.
So let's layer this now with AI, right? Just when you think you figure out something, right? People were trying to figure out data, how to store data. Now I think they're trying to figure out how to make sense of unstructured data, how to get insights from it, again, to answer to the consumer. Now that you're layering this with AI, right? You have in your own organization a CTO, a CMO, right? A data, the head of data, I don't know where data sits in your organization, for instance, in your particular P&L. But it almost seems like just when we have figured something out, there's something new that hits us, So just when people were trying to get stores right, Amazon came and completely disrupted, right? E-commerce. Just when you thought you got e-commerce right, sometimes I think, Ajit, that the Amazon guy is hiding in my bushes, in the garden. Like in 2 hours, I mean, I've ordered something, and sometimes I feel guilty, when they give you an option, like you can also have it delivered tomorrow. More often than not, I choose that because I think of the carbon footprint of this person coming and giving me something in 2 hours. But like you said, that's become the new norm, right? So now let's layer this with AI. And I think you said something very beautiful earlier in the conversation where you said, how do we use that as a very clear advantage, right, to the consumers and customers that we are talking about? So it almost seems like exciting and scary at the same time, this moment. How do you see this? How are your peers seeing this in some of the conversations that you've been having recently in and around stages all over the world? What are you hearing on the ground?
Look, I mean, I have a more philosophical approach to AI, and maybe I'm alone, or maybe there are other people who share the point of view. But at least my point of view is very simple. It's another innovation, and AI, as you know, has been around for a long time. I think compute just caught up with AI, so now you have the combination of being able to use AI at scale. So that's the only thing that has dramatically changed. And then because of that, there is a lot of investments that's pushing innovation when it comes to AI-related products, chips. Think about the entire ecosystem that AI powers today. I mean, the investments are pretty significant because the promise is big.
Correct.
But 15 years ago, it was about big data. 30 years ago, it was about the internet. And maybe 100 years ago, it was about the steam engine. I mean, these are all things that are happening in the evolution of civilization. It's just another paradigm. And AI is no different. It's a new paradigm. It's got new rules, not well understood by everybody. Lots of definition challenges in terms of what is AI, what is not AI, the definition of what is an AI PC as an example. All of those things, because it's formative. When big data came, I think you remember the big conversation was people didn't know, unstructured, structured, Hadoop clusters.
Data lakes, yeah.
People were talking about a lot of things. It's the same thing with AI. I think it's going to take a little bit of time for it to be main stage where everybody, by the way, many of the products, many of the solutions, many of the things we do already has AI. I mean, if you kind of think about it, it just doesn't show up on the front page or
my Roomba.
Right. Your search function, as an example, has AI embedded in it. There are many, many things that we do on a routine basis. I mean, if you go to a dentist's office, they use AI as a way of kind of predicting where your next teeth might have a cavity.
Wow.
So the technology is being leveraged based on customer pain points. Yeah. So I think that it's going to take time. And part of the thing is also, I think there's so many solutions in the marketplace, and there are so many players, and there is so much innovation happening all at once. The big challenge is about the choice, about everything that's around you, and trying to make informed decisions on what works for you versus what works for somebody else. The key in all of this is to say, can you take something and use that to your advantage in a meaningful way that impacts your business? And that, I think, is where there's potentially different players are at different stages, different companies are at different stages in terms of saying, we are comfortable using a LLM that is external facing. Many of the people have tried to do that, and then they ended up with legal issues.
Yes.
Because they did not understand privacy, they did not understand copyright infringement, they did not understand some of the other nuances which are very important when you have these conversations.
Correct.
So The technology itself, I don't think anybody should be afraid of. It's just another paradigm. It is going to be ubiquitous in a matter of years. It's going to be pervasive in everything that we do. But it is like everything else. It's another, we don't talk about the internet anymore. I mean, it was a
Yeah.
thing
Or
20,
data, actually, in some ways. Yeah.
but even data, as an example, we
Yeah.
don't talk about those things as something that is new or something that is
Yeah.
fascinating. It was at the time, but now it's just become main stage. It's table stakes. It's
So you
same thing.
don't see this as a as a trend. You are seeing AI as something here to stay, right? It's not like Meta or the multiverse or NFTs or something. From your
No.
tone, it almost seems like this is a serious pivot.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, look, the promise of AI is real.
Okay.
The realization of AI is going to take time. And that's partly because many of the solutions have to get to scale for costs to come down. So cost is a big
Right.
issue.
Right.
Right. So unless you get critical mass,
Yeah.
the cost curves will not come down. But with everything else, cost curves will come down when more adoption happens.
Correct.
And I think that there are lots of players today, many of them coming up with many solutions. That rationalization will also happen at some point. So the clear leaders will emerge, solutions will become standardized.
Correct.
People will feel more comfortable using a particular solution because others have used it and they can demonstrate success and you can understand your cost of ownership better. So I think it takes a little bit of time for all these things to evolve and settle down. Now with AI, the only thing that I would tell you is that that period might be longer than past experiences, simply because every aspect of the human life today is
Will
in some
be
way getting intersected by
impacted.
AI.
Yeah.
So you're going to see a lot more use cases. There is applicability of AI in pretty much everything you can think of. So from that standpoint, I think it might take a little bit longer. But there is not a single area that human beings experience today that is not going to be impacted one way or the other by the use of AI and technology.
Where do you see these impacts happening immediately when it comes to the end consumer? And then we can talk about businesses.
I think I think that the biggest one that I've seen is the creator economy. So
Right.
as individuals are beginning their own businesses, and you see more and more entrepreneurship, I think the future is about entrepreneurs people being enabled to do their own business, bring ideas. If you're an artist, as an example, 20 years ago, you needed to go to a gallery, you needed to present somewhere, you needed to have resources. So those barriers are coming down because the playing field is much more level. You have the ability to have an Instagram
Or
account
someone
and
to
you
write a
can,
book.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
publish, you can create,
Yeah.
you can do things. I mean, Uber is a great example of how
Right.
democratization happened. It's the same thing. AI tools and AI technology is enabling the creator economy to thrive. So that's where I
Beautiful.
see the biggest impact. If you're an artist, if you're a designer, you are selling something. You have a small shop that makes something specialized. Your ability to actually sell, promote, all of those things you're going to see in real time. If you see the number of ads, if you see the number of things that on Instagram that people are actually selling, you see
Crazy.
it's amazing. And
Yeah.
and some of the quality and some of the creatives that you see are just mind-boggling in terms of how they're able to do it. And it's a one-person shop.
Yeah.
So I think you're already beginning to see some of those things come to bear for
Yeah.
sure. And then businesses, I mean, different story, but it's the same thing. We are, Lenovo as an example is working on 100 different solutions that are AI powered using our technology to solve big problems, whether that is medical, that is educational, that is small businesses, any number of customer segments that you can think of. We have the ability to provide a solution that solves a problem that once was unsolvable or helps customers make faster decisions or enable and empower them to be more efficient. So those things I think will happen in due course, but you will also see that the individual consumer is going to be more and more empowered.
Right. Right. And Lenovo as one of the, I want to come back to the agility of Lenovo. And again, I only see this as an end consumer, so I can't even imagine what others, who really know the business and who interact with Lenovo on a daily basis, obviously are getting that advantage of how quickly and agile Lenovo is. So, speaking of agility and coming back to it, Lenovo was one of the, while other companies perhaps were still thinking whether they should dip their toes into this thing or waiting to see whether this was a trend or something that was here to stay. Even last year, even 18 months ago, I remember the conversation was still around, oh, I think this is going to die down. I think this is just a blip, and I don't think companies are going to have enough money to invest in AI, or, where is this really going to be, to now where the conversation, like, companies are having AI officers, and so while people are still trying to catch on and companies are still trying to make sense of this, Lenovo was already ahead of the curve by making very strategic investments, I think 3 years, 4 years, 5 years ago, right? So what has been Lenovo's journey on, what is Lenovo's thinking on the AI aspect, a little more than what you have just defined? And what are some of the strategic partnerships that Lenovo has already put in place, including with NVIDIA and the others, to see this, like you said, as a game changer in the competitive advantage that you can offer, the strategic advantage that you can offer to your consumers?
Yeah, look, I mean, we have the advantage of being people who provide the hardware. So when you're making computers that need the capability, you kind of have to know what you're doing. So the hardware side, I mean, most of our products now are integrated with some level of AI, some more than others. But in the next 2 or 3 years, every product that we will sell will have AI embedded in it, whether that's phones, servers,
Wow.
PCs.
Wow.
So, so from a product development standpoint, many of these conversations started a long time ago, right? Where people are kind of at a point where saying, how do we actually have chips? I mean, NVIDIA, Qualcomm, Intel, AMD, ARM, many of these guys have been, coming out with chips that are specialized, more and more specialized, and more capable in terms of being able to exploit the power of compute and to be able to do calculations and computations at a speed that we have never seen before, or the number of
Right.
computations done simultaneously. So the advent of chip design and chip technology is something that we are intricately involved in. That's
Right.
that's our bread and butter. Everything that we use, we have to have a chipset in it to
Yeah.
power it.
Yeah.
So that's the product side of things, right? So those are things that we've been building. Now, what has changed is from a consumer standpoint. So that's a practitioner standpoint, is to say, how are people using it?
Yeah.
So as an example, our view is that there is a personal AI twin, and then there is a enterprise AI twin. The enterprise AI twins are meant to make enterprises more efficient. A personal AI twin makes people more efficient. So,
Beautiful.
yeah, so when you think about personal AI trend, a good example would be instrumentation data of your phone. So how you use your phone, what you look at, what's the type of usage you have. That data then allows us to better customize using AI preferences for you as a user. So that's proprietary information that we have of phone usage by our users. So that allows us then to take that data and make the products far more capable and far more efficient from an end user standpoint. Same can be applied for enterprise. So we have enterprise level data for how people are using technology. We can use that data to then help whatever the paradigm is, whatever the situation is, or whatever the industry is, to then customize solutions that make the enterprise more efficient. So that's a very simple way of kind of thinking about it, right? It's we have products are embedded with AI capability. People are using those products. We get an understanding of how people are using it, and then we figure out how to use that as a point of innovation, how to kind of help our customers to be more productive. So that's a simple way of kind of thinking about it. So I think in some ways being a technology provider helps us kind of have a little bit
Correct.
of an advantage simply because we are invested in the product side of things.
Right. Uh, it almost sounds like AI shouldn't, it's a little bit like data. When people would tell me they have a chief data officer, or when the conversation goes on who really owns the consumer, I roll my eyes because to me, of course, the marketing gamut owns the consumer. It's their job to make the consumer very real so that the organization, which has been put together to answer to this consumer, is able to answer to the consumer better, right? So I knew there was an opportunity where there was a chief data officer, and now it almost seems like data became the fabric of the organization. From what you're saying, it almost seems like there is no one place that will head AI or own AI. It will become, a fabric for the whole organization. Am I correct in that interpretation?
Yep.
So where would it sit? So for example, in Lenovo, where does it sit? That's one. And what would be your advice for organizations that are trying to get into this and perhaps they're delayed either because of the kind of money that they have to put into it, the kind of investments they have to make, or because there were other decisions, because they don't have the agility and the speed that Lenovo does. So where does AI sit in Lenovo, and where does what is the advice that you would give to other companies trying to do the same?
So AI, in some ways, is a little tricky, simply because I think it is so broad and so complex that it cannot be a one-person job or a one organization job.
And you also talk about Gen AI. Am I right when you're talking about AI?
Yeah,
You also talk about Gen AI as an extent, all AI. Yes.
Just another variation of the AI
Yeah.
paradigm. But if you're talking about AI, it's so complex and so diverse that no one person or no one group can go solve that problem. So for us, we have an AI council, which is made up of a cross-functional team from lawyers
Nice.
all the way to business leaders, sales leaders, technology leaders, all of the above, so that we have a balanced point of view on both the risks, the legal ramifications, the opportunity to figure out, what is the right approach. You also have to be aware of governmental regulations. You have to worry about privacy. You have to worry about IP. You have to worry about legal issues. So it requires a cross-functional approach that allows for us to have a dialogue, and we look at things centrally. You're also worried about things like security, as an example. So you don't want to have rogue instances where people are just doing their stuff with the best of intentions of pushing the envelope, but then end up on the wrong side of the conversation because they did something without knowing. So trying to manage the legal risks and trying to manage the implications of the brand and IP, I think becomes very, very important. And there are bad actors when it comes to some of these things. It can go the wrong way. And your ability to train models the right way, your ability to actually make sure the data is not contaminated. All of those things are very, very important because you don't want bias to be introduced into your AI model.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a robust process, you will end up, having issues. Now, the flip side of this conversation that is a little bit more difficult is that some of the decisions that happen in the AI black box are not well understood.
Yeah.
And so, it's not like in the past where you could go just decode something. You have to make sure that the integrity of the process is maintained so
very high levels of governance, right? And
correct. So the governance has to be very, very high. You have to make sure that there is no ability for anything to be tampered with or anything to go wrong, because the price of getting it wrong is pretty steep. And so the risk for the enterprise and the brand can be very steep. So you have to be extremely careful. And therefore, I come back to the point saying it's not one or two people. It's really a cross-functional team. And that team is a very senior team made up of our governing body that reports to the CEO. So any project, as an example, anybody wants to do has to go through the AI Council for their approval and blessing, so that we are not going to do something inadvertently that's going to cause issues for us.
And this is at the global level and the zonal level representations?
This global level, and everything else flows from there.
Okay. So is this a scary time or an exciting time, according to you?
I think maybe a little bit of both. There is a lot of uncertainty. It's exciting because I think the possibilities are significant. It has the potential to actually uplift everybody, uplift society in general. The flip side is anxiety for a lot of people with jobs, people worried about bad actors, People worried about manipulation of publicly available information where reality blurs with myth. So I think from a societal standpoint, you got the good and the bad. The good is that I think that many countries where AI can actually make a big impact in terms of helping the population be more productive, make more money. Hopefully, the standard and the standard of living goes up.
Yeah.
The flip side is, like I said, people are worried about losing jobs. That drives. I mean, if you ask any young person today, their number one concern is that AI is going to take their jobs, and they don't know what's going to happen. They're worried about what they should study in school, as an example.
Yeah.
So that's one. People in established professions, from doctors all the way to anyone that you can think of, even managers. AI has the ability to
Consultants.
potentially
Yeah.
replace
Yeah.
them. So that is the scary part for many people. I'm not saying necessarily it's a personal view that I am scared of it, but I think society is bifurcated from that standpoint, and it's going to take time for people to get comfortable once they know what it actually is.
Yeah. Any advice you have for companies that are trying to figure this out? And then, of course, any advice you have for individuals? I know you have two kids who, have just left college, right? Ending college, or, have just gone through the process of studying, while universities continue to try and pivot to these new realities, because I think they also have to pivot at the same speed as organizations have to do it, right? So in that sense, it's a little bit of a level playing field. So first, let me ask you, what's your advice to organizations who are trying to figure all this out, And it could be all kinds of organizations, not just tech organizations.
Well, look, I mean, I always, when you are faced with uncertainty, go back to points in history where we have had uncertainty. And the human spirit and just the nature of human civilization has always been that they overcome these problems through collaboration, through thinking through things, through alternate means. So eventually things work out. So I'm optimistic from that standpoint, and I don't think we are necessarily worried about the fact that something terrible is going to happen. I think from an individual standpoint, the questions that I get from a lot of students and young people is, what's going to happen? I mean, what should I study? What happens to the job market? And I tell them, guys, look, for 25 years, I've been doing e-commerce. I went to college. There was no e-commerce when I went to college. It's completely new. And yet here I am. So the jobs that you see today, the opportunities you see today are not necessarily the same jobs and opportunities that will exist. They will morph, they will change, they will transform, and there will be new opportunities. So my advice to them is study whatever interests you. Do what you're passionate about. Focus on that, because AI, no AI, at some point there will be an equivalent, there will be a twin for that particular thing. Doctors, as an example, are not just going to go away completely. Their roles will change. The care will be different. Maybe they become advisors. I mean, so every job, everything, it's not going to happen overnight where suddenly there are no doctors. I mean, there are just robots in a hospital. That is a dream that will happen at some point in the future.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that transformation and evolution takes time. It gives people the opportunity, and society in general, the opportunity to pivot and adjust. So things will fall into place. It's going to have disruption. The good example of this is when horse carts were replaced
Yes.
with steam engines, as an
Yes.
example, right? So people said, look, I mean, oh my God, the entire paradigm they knew was
Yeah.
horse carts.
Yeah.
And there was a whole ecosystem around it. But then motor cars came, and over a period of time, horse carts became obsolete. But people survived, they thrived, there was change, there was chaos.
And there's
But
still horses around.
there are horses around, but nobody really uses it as a means of transportation anymore.
Yeah.
But the point is that transition happened, and it was pretty seamless. There was some disruption. So there will be some disruption, but eventually we will get to steady state as the paradigm becomes much more ubiquitous, and that's just the nature of innovation. So I think AI has the possibility of dramatically changing outcomes in the future, whether that is your medical outcomes, whether that is about safety, about privacy, whether it's about more jobs differently done. And in general, I think the ability for us to raise the living standards of an entire population. So that's where the opportunity is. The path that leads to that opportunity has, challenges, but that's just because we don't know the future, and we will not know the future. So we will have to just transform and adjust, and as society kind of goes through and embraces some of these technologies, that is a natural part of how things will evolve.
So, I mean, first and foremost, I want to thank you for your optimism, Ajit. I was going to ask you that question, and I'm glad you answered it for yourself. I was going to say, it looks like you studied for engineering, and here you are, not just leading, e-commerce for Lenovo, but perhaps being able to offer an entire book of learnings for many organizations who are still trying to pivot into e-commerce, right? Whether it's for business to business or business to consumer. So I first and foremost want to thank you for being the person, I think, a living example. Everything that you have said about morphing, learning, what life throws at you. And I'm sure there must have been at least a couple of times in life where you must have been like, whoa, I don't know where this is coming from. And then not just trying to figure it out for yourself, but knowing that there's an entire team that is depending on you to figure it out, right? And now it looks like that team is in close to 40 countries, right? So that's not an easy thing to bear on your shoulders, and also to continue to morph, right? So first and foremost, deliver on the P&L of the existing while being ready to see the future, even though you don't know everything that the future may throw at you. So I do want to thank you. I've been a fan since I met you, and I think 2016 or something. And I hope that this conversation continues. I'm sure this is not the last time that we're going to be having this conversation, but I do want to thank you. There was a reason why you're one of the first inaugural guests of the CMO podcast. I think this is a very, very important conversation to have, and one that needs to continue. It looks like a lot of times in the world of business, there were opportunities for the entire C-suite to come together, but perhaps they were not taken, right? But it looks like now, in this moment, there is no choice, but the entire organization needs to come together to solve for this, because, like you said, it's going to impact every aspect of our life, whether it comes to business or consumer. Did I say that right? Did I reflect your thoughts
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, this is a collective challenge. I think that organizations will have to figure things out. I think individuals will have to figure things out. But I'm optimistic that all of these things eventually will lead to a more prosperous and a better society in the future. I want to thank you, Anika, for thinking of me for this conversation. Hopefully, it was productive.
You've been listening to CMO Dialogues, powered by LTI Mindtree. We create transformative digital experiences that reach over 1 billion lives, driving deeper brand connections and lasting impact. Subscribe on your favorite platform so you never miss the insights shaping the future of marketing. Bold insights, real stories, the future of marketing straight from the Mavericks. See you next time on CMO Dialogues.